Well, everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and compare the iPhone 14 Pro Max or just the standard 14 Pro and the iPhone 13 Pro and see which one is the better one for you. Now, what's funny about this is that we're basically going from the current iPhone that I'm using, which is the 13 Pro, to the 14 Pro, which I'm going to be switching to probably in the next few weeks, probably in the next few days, I don't know. The SIM card tray thing is really bothering me, so I'll probably be giving it a little bit more time than usual. But regardless, let's see which one is the better one for you. Now, links will be down in the description where you can buy both of these phones and you can help support the channel at the same time, which would be awesome. Now, starting off with the differences between both on the front, there really aren't a crazy amount of differences. Just kidding. This year is probably one of the bigger ones. So you can see that the 14 Pro over the 13 Pro does have a little bit of a different design on the front, which most of you probably know. The iPhone 13 Pro on the front had a 6.1-inch Super Retina Extra OLED panel. And as I said not too long ago, this was the biggest differences this year. In my opinion, in 2021, when Apple dropped this phone, I was very excited about switching over to it. We had a better camera, we had better everything than the previous iPhone, but better battery life too, and that ProMotion display, which was amazing. I was a massive fan of that, and even now it still holds up very, very well. On the iPhone 14 Pro, on the other hand, we obviously have a little bit of a different display. So we now have that dynamic island display, still, very good panel ProMotion as well. It's the same size as the 13 Pro, but we now get a little bit of a better panel because of the lack of that notch. Now, it is still it's not a notch, but it's like a pill design, which is kind of cool, but it's kind of not even that big of a deal. I mean, if you look at how close it is resemblance-wise to the notch itself, it's kind of the same thing. You're just getting a little bit of screen real estate on top. Other than that, even the dynamic island thing, it hasn't really came up that much. I mean, I don't even think I've experienced yet because none of the applications I've used so far that I've installed have utilized it yet. So I'm excited to try it out, but I don't think it's going to be like a life-changing thing that Apple kind of showcased. I think it's going to be very similar to the Touch Bar on the MacBooks. I think that's probably what it's going to end up being like. In terms of thickness and thickness, you can see pretty much the same thing. We also have the lack of a SIM card tray on our iPhone 14 Pro. So you can see the 13 Pro up top actually had that, SIM card tray. The 14 Pro now does not have it, which is very, very sad. On the back, we have camera setups on both as well, and it is a little bit bigger. On the Pro Max, it was harder to tell, how much bigger it was, but on these phones, you can actually tell how much bigger the camera module is over the standard 13 Pro. I don't know if you're able to tell at this angle, but it is actually a little bit more noticeable to the naked eye, so that is actually pretty crazy, and I don't know exactly how I feel about it, but it is whatever, we're going to get used to it. Now, you also have the always-on display on the iPhone 14 Pro, which I think is kind of cool. I've already turned mine off on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, but I'll have to turn it off for the 14 Pro as well. There's an option to do it, which is really cool. So in terms of that kind of covers it up on the outside between both. Now, in terms of software and longevity, this is where things start getting a little bit more interesting. So with the iPhone 14 Pro, it is going to last longer than the 13 Pro probably. But the weird thing is, with the iPhone 14, it has the same exact chipset as this phone. So I don't know for a fact if the iPhone 14 is going to last as long as the 13 Pro, or if the 13 Pro is going to last as long as the 14, if that makes any sense. Basically what I mean is the 13 Pro going to last way longer than expected, or is the 14 not going to last as long and only last maybe like 2 years less than the 14 Pro? So in that example, I'm not 100% too sure what Apple's going to be doing. I think it's a very interesting approach that they've done, and I'm curious to see what's going to end up happening. But like I stated before, if you want the longest lasting phone, definitely something like the iPhone 14 Pro is the one you want to go ahead and go for. I mean, this phone has pretty much everything going for it. It's going to last much longer than a lot of other phones in the market too. So if you're wanting to get a phone that can last as long as you probably want it to last, then this is definitely the one you want to go and pick up. So in terms of that kind of covers it up here. Now let's go and do a speed comparison between both these phones. Now the iPhone 14 Pro has that Apple A16 bionic chip inside of it with 6 GB of RAM, where the iPhone 13 Pro has that Apple A15 bionic chip inside of it with 6 GB of RAM as well. So let's go and see which one's the faster one between both. Okay, there we go. All the apps are cleared out in the background, as you guys can tell. So let's get into it. Phone calls, let's just skip that one. Let's go straight into the app stores. 3, 2, 1. Now you can see we continue to get these pop-ups on this iPhone. I don't know why. I've already been through this, specific applications between both this whole entire time. Scrolling through, I don't think there's that big of a difference. If we can go and kind of scroll into this top one, and I want to download an application and see if there's a difference. I don't think there's going to be, but if we can go and get into something like PUBG on both, actually that's a big application, we'll just skip that one. Let's go into their cameras, 3, 2, 1, and let's go and take a photo. I don't know why my iPhone 13 Pro automatically flipped, but let's go and take a photo. And it did take a little bit more of a noticeable time on the 13 Pro than on the iPhone 14 Pro in that specific case. So that was very, very interesting there as well. Let's go and hop around and let's go and get into some of these other applications I have on both. So we can try Netflix, 3, 2, 1. Another pop-up on this phone, I don't know why, but it's still loaded up kind of faster than 13 Pro, which is very interesting. Quizlet, which I do not have. Let's go to Snake First Blocks, 3, 2, 1. And that kind of covers up this one, not really that massive of a difference there. Let's go and hop out of here. Let's go and load up the standard Temple Run 2, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we can definitely see the Temple Run 2 on the iPhone 14 Pro. I mean, it kind of looked like it was faster, but now these ones are kind of loading in at the same time. And the 14 Pro was the faster one, but just by a little bit. There really wasn't that crazy big of a difference here, which is pretty insane. Getting to some gameplay, again, I don't know if there's going to be that big of a difference, which I highly doubt, but still kind of crazy in my opinion. Now we can try something like Thank You, 3, 2, 1. And again, the iPhone 14 Pro is the faster one here. So this is really good news. I love seeing the newer iPhones being faster. Between the 14 Pro and the other one, I wasn't really seeing that big of a difference, but you're also getting more RAM, which is a really cool thing. So between both, you're going to be getting a better RAM experience, which I'm really, really happy about. Now, if we go and get into like this specific application, get into here, now I totally messed that one up as well, but I do want to scroll through and see if we can find another application that I had between both that I no longer have. So we can look at something like Call of Duty Mobile, we can look at like we can go ahead and try something like PUBG and see how long it takes on both. Again, this is a pretty big game, so I think it's not going to open up anytime soon. But we'll go ahead and download in the background, and I will kind of wrap up this whole entire speed comparison by saying that between both, you're definitely getting a faster experience, I think, overall on the iPhone 14 Pro. It has the higher likelihood and having the higher potential of being the faster one. But from the things I've tested and from just using these phones side by side, even with the 14 Pro Max, it doesn't really seem like it's that big of a difference if I'm being honest. So in terms of that, that kind of covers it up there. Now, in terms of the camera setup, what I'll definitely tell you is between both, you are getting a really good camera setup on both these phones. I will definitely say the 14 Pro is the better one, but between both, you're getting the same type of camera angle, so wide, ultra-wide, and telephoto lenses, 4K at 60 on the front and the back, but the 14 Pro is definitely the better one. You're getting higher megapixel count at 48 megapixels versus the 12 megapixel wide-angle lens you had on the 13 Pro, and you're also getting some new modes, which we'll get into in a second. The 13 Pro, though, very, very good camera. I've been using this phone camera for the last, a year this phone's been out, and it's been very solid. You know, everything I've wanted to do, it's been handling it very, very well. Personally, this thing has, gone with me for so many videos. I've even filmed a few videos on this camera, and it's been very good. You can definitely tell it was filmed on a camera, though, like a phone camera, but this thing's battery life has been really good for me. The camera quality has been excellent, and I really haven't had too many complaints with it. 4K at 60 on the front and the back, you have cinematic mode, standard video mode, portrait mode. This camera kind of has it all, and I'm a big fan of the way this camera still holds up. The 14 Pro is also kind of the same thing. I mean, this is a bigger lens. It's going to be a better camera, but you're also getting some cooler things inside the camera. I think that's like the best way to describe it. First of all, with this type of lens, you're getting that, super stabilization mode, which is really nice. So you have that ability of basically getting very stabilized videos if you're wanting to go ahead and utilize it. So I think that is really cool. You're also getting cinematic mode at 4K now. So before we didn't have that capability, you now have that with the 14 Pro, which like I said before, I think is really cool. And you're just getting really awesome features, just through and through with this specific phone. So to kind of be honest and to kind of sum up this video, I definitely will tell you the 14 Pro is the better phone in pretty much most areas. I think this is definitely the phone if you want to go ahead and just buy the best phone that you can buy. This is the one I would recommend. I mean, it's $1,000. If you don't care about that SIM card being removed, I mean, this is the best one for you. But I think the 13 Pro, in my opinion, is still probably one of the best iPhones Apple has ever made. And the dynamic island display thing is cool, but the 13 Pro, with it having the best battery life I've ever had on any iPhone, for having the best camera I've ever had as well, I mean, this is a really good deal. If you can buy this thing for like less than $800, then I think this is a really good phone even for the next year. For the next year, if you don't want to spend $1,000 on this one, you'll still be getting almost the same exact phone on the 13 Pro. Just obviously you won't be getting a notch on the dynamic island display on the 14 Pro. But I think this is a very good phone that I probably will honestly plan on using too. I don't know if I'm going to switch to the 14 Pro or not. I'll probably still keep it. but this is the only time I've ever decided of like, oh, I'm definitely keeping the older one rather than the newer one in probably the last like 4 years, to be honest. So that kind of covers it up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.